Hello everyone and welcome back to Oba's Trending Gist. Today we are diving deep into the prolonged detention of Nnamdi Kanu and the escalating calls for his release. For over a decade, the IPOB separatist leader has been incarcerated on charges of treasonable felony, sparking widespread debate and international appeals. Recently, human rights activist Omoyele Sowore has ramped up his advocacy, challenging Nigerians to join peaceful protests to demand Kanu's freedom. This has many asking, is this a genuine pursuit of justice or are there political undercurrents at play as the 2027 election approaches? We will also examine the difficult legacy of Kanu's past actions, which have undeniably contributed to the unrest and violence in the southeast. Stay with us as we unpack all this and more. Sit back and take a watch.
The IPOB separatist leader has been incarcerated for over 10 years on charges of treasonable felony, despite various court orders and appeals for his release. Till date, he stands unconvicted, and for many champions of justice, his continued detention is both a travesty and a violation of his fundamental human rights. They say this exposes the widening gap between Nigeria's constitutional provisions of a right to a fair trial within a reasonable time and the daily realities of the citizens of this besmirched country, in a world in which the enduring principle and the cornerstone of the law is that every individual is presumed innocent until proven guilty. Well, today, a new call for action has been made by the human rights activist Omoyele Sowore, challenging Nigerians across ethnic lines to join him in a peaceful march to the Aso Rock presidential villa to demand Mr. Kanu's release, even as his health is reported to be fast deteriorating in custody. Well, for more on this, I'm joined now in the studio by the irrepressible human rights activist and former presidential candidate Omoyele Sowore. Thank you very much indeed for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
What has motivated you to take the step of calling on people to take to the streets to draw attention to the need to release Mr. Kanu?
It's a number of things, and one is that we're friends, and we've been friends for a long time. In fact, I was one of the few people through Sahara TV that interviewed Nnamdi Kanu when he was relatively unknown, before he was arrested the first time. And I met him in 2019 in New York, had a conversation about the struggle for his people, and we struck a friendship then. And I was here in Nigeria, myself, held up by the Nigerian government when he was extraordinary rendition from Kenya. In fact, I was one of the few people who ran to court by the time he had been taken to the DSS detention, where he had been deposited before, after he was kidnapped from Kenya. So, but the most important thing is that I understand the nature of justice, fair hearing, his constitutional right. And it is in his own case that you can say that he's presumed guilty and he's trying to prove his innocence, which is very sad. If you look at how long it has taken for all these court processes to take place, you know that Kanu's fate is not in the hands of the judiciary. If a decision was taken today by the owners of Nigeria to let him go, the judge might sit in the middle of the night and let him go. And by the way, on my way here, something happened. President Tinubu just pardoned 82 people. One of them was Herbert Macaulay, Nnamdi Azikwe, of course, Farouk, who collected a bribe from Otedola, a cocaine dealer who was in prison for life, and a fraudster. So if you can pardon this array of people and several others, I'm not asking for pardon for him, but it's a time to let Nnamdi Kanu go.
Is there a lot of public support for the release of Nnamdi Kanu, or is that difficult to gauge?
Oh, it's unprecedented. You know, I've been fighting for his release for a long time. I used to attend all his court trials. Under Buhari, I was attacked several times. Each time I went to court, I was attacked physically by the DSS, police, thugs. But this time around, I'm surprised at the number of non-traditional people, you know what I mean, who are in support of it. In fact, there was a poll put up by, you know, it's not a scientific poll, by Tunde Ednon's page, who's a major Instagram influencer, And out of 17,000 people, 92% of them support the call for his release and the protest that's been planned for 20th of October.
I understand you've tried to contact many leaders in the Southeast to take more public-facing action in support of Nnamdi Kanu's release. Have you been struck by their apparent lack of personal involvement and commitment to that cause?
I'm not shocked, because I think on your show I once declared that Kanu's predicament, his ordeal, is as a result of some persons in the Southeast who took a decision that his release would jeopardize their political career and future. That I know as far back as when Tinubu freshly became president, because I was part of some conversation to release him. And they said at that time, Imo elections are coming. If it comes out, APC might not win. And subsequently, I realized that some of the communiques you see is just, word of mouth by day. When they go at night or when they meet Tinubu, it's likely that they have a different position. And when I started contacting them in the last 24 hours, I'm shocked. Some of them that I used to be able to reach just switched off their lines. The ones I sent messages never responded. I reached out to Soludo, who I know personally.
That's Charles Soludo, who's
governor of Anambra State. No response till now. I reached out to Alex Oti. Alex Oti used to be a columnist for Sahara Reporters, so I know him personally. No response till now. The only response I got was a nominal response that no, we shouldn't have dragged us the way you did. Reached out to Peter Obi, they said he's in Rome. But I sent a message that, you can behave as the Romans do too, just be part of this. But some have been encouraging. Senator Abaribe, I reached out to him, he responded, he said, I'm in on this. And I know that Abaribe suffered when he was a shorty for Kanu. In fact, I was sleeping on Abaribe's bed at the DSS in 2019, shortly after he was released, because he was shorty for Nnamdi Kanu. So the rep from his state at the House of Rep also has signed up. A number of persons have signed up, some of them publicly, but there is no unified response from Southeastern political leaders or traditional rulers or even the religious priesthood there, which many had expected would happen. But a lot of young people have signed up to this, and you can see that the Nigerian government is already pushing back because they've seen the response to be unequivocally in support of the release of Nnamdi Kanu at this time. I don't think they were expecting that such a response would be so favorable and swift.
So is this what you think is needed to push this Nnamdi Kanu issue over the line and perhaps change President Tinubu's view of Mr. Kanu and not the sort of behind-the-scenes quiet diplomacy that has been going on since?
It's obvious that diplomacy cannot work. If it was going to work, by now it would have resolved the issue. I think they used the diplomacy or their proclamation about diplomacy to just make the public become a little lethargic about his release so that nobody, they're working on it, don't worry. Because we hear that a lot from Oti, who is the Abia State governor, that is working on this quietly. In fact, I was told in court about 2 weeks ago that he will be released on head grounds. They had convinced everybody, only for him to come to court, and they kept changing the goalpost, as we call it. So I don't think diplomacy has to be a combination of, actions. And one of it, I think, is going to be a loud public disapproval of his continued detention, and a protest would work, in my view, in that regard. And that's why I want these people who claim to want him to be released to join the protest. Yes, because when they have issues, they do protest. There's no major politician in this country that has never participated in the protest when their own private interests are at stake.
I was speaking to a group of Nigerian political campaigners recently, and they seem to think that mobilizing the Nigerian people for any kind of large-scale protest has become a sort of famously impossible thing to achieve. I mean, do you share that view?
Well, I don't. It's the same country in 2024 that Nigerians protested for 10 days straight in what was known as End Bad Governance struggle. Nigerians in 2020 did NSAS. It was a globally acclaimed resistance.
Well, to be
movement.
fair, the NSARS was the last big protest.
Yes, but there was still a protest in 2024. It may not have been as big. What I'm saying is that yes, there's been efforts to discourage Nigerians, and you know, when you go out there and kill people and charge them for offenses that are very grievous in nature, you are likely to discourage a country in which, you know, you have 139 million people who are living in abject poverty. They just want to go out there and get whatever they can and survive from day to day, hand to mouth. So, but I don't think that is impossible. What has been impossible is the unity of purpose, because they have figured out how to divide us, you know, along ethnicity. I remember in 2024, when we were planning bad governance protest, we included the release of Nnamdi Kanu in that protest. And the Ohaneze Ndigbo, when I issued a statement that they are not part of the protest. So maybe by now, we would have gotten Nnamdi released. So there's also a lot of tactics used by Nigerian government to discourage people. And some of it is how they have made it open-ended to kill protesters, you know, implicate them in crimes that are insurmountable. You saw in 2024 how they charged children for treason. It's never happened anywhere in the world before. So, but I think the consciousness around this is great. And I also think that in some ways, Nigerians always love when things are happening in other places. They love the replica of it. You know, you notice that there's been a lot of chatter around Nepal, you know, and Morocco recently. So maybe, you know, that's also might be an inspiration.
Welcome back, Gisters. In that first segment, we had Sowore emphasizes the prolonged justice faced by Nnamdi Kanu, stating that his continued detention in a travesty and the violation of his fundamental human rights exposes a widening gap between Nigeria's constitutional provision and daily realities. Sowore highlights that despite various court orders, Kanu remains uncondemned and unreleased. He also revealed his long-standing friendship with Kanu, even interviewing him before his first arrest, and discussed his own experiences with detention by the Nigerian government. Sowore stressed the importance of the legal principle that every individual is presumed innocent until proven guilty. This sets the stage for his call to action, urging Nigerians to join a peaceful march to Aso Rock Presidential Villa to demand Kanu's release, especially given reports of his deteriorating health. Let's now delve into the second part of this compelling interview. Watch this.
Right, but I mean, are there lingering security-related things that are yet to be resolved around Mr. Kanu? I mean, can he, for instance, call on IPOB? I think he's called on them before, but again, to relinquish all forms of violence and all forms of threat to the Nigerian state. Will that be needed as well in order to convince the powers that be of Mr. Kanu's sincerity?
I think he made an open declaration in court where he said, give me 5 minutes if I'm released, I'm going to end the violence in the Southeast. He made the declaration in court last year. What does you want from him? And you are the government, at any rate, you have a duty to protect the public. It's not his job to protect the Southeast or the Southwest. But the truth is that I have said this, and I'll repeat again. If you are a Nigerian, you can get away with a lot of things. But if you are Igbo, Nigerian, you can't get away with a lot of things. Yes.
But you're not getting away with much.
Yes, but the odds are stacked against you because you know you're coming with zero, and they will do it to you. I mean, it was in this country that there's a Yoruba nation movement. They even went and hijacked a radio station last year. You know, did you hear of any trial? Did you hear of any arrest? I'm not using that. I'm not saying that that should not be the case, but we must tell ourselves the truth. That it just doesn't look good that the Igbos are marginalized in every sector, including in the justice sector. You know, to get a trial wrapped up in 10 years is that so difficult to do, especially when you claim that you have evidence that this person has committed these grievous crimes. Nothing has been done. There's nobody who's been presented as a witness. The only witness that was presented in his case did not accuse him of any crime. He didn't say he found a gun on him or he was importing ammunition or weapons or had a grenade. He just said, well, he was making declaration that he wants Biafra. And I've checked the Nigerian Constitution, 1999 Constitution. There's nowhere it is stated that it's a crime to say that you want Biafra.
Yeah, well, I mean, you do have to, and not to sort of qualify what you're saying, but I mean, the person asking for a Yoruba nation is quite different from the Biafra issue, because Biafra, actually, there was a war in this country.
That's exactly what I'm telling you, that the laws are stacked against you.
That lasted quite some
Absolutely.
time. So in that context, and in that very narrow context, anything that appears to inflame that concept of, bringing back the memories of the war and all the things that happened, and in a sense threatening this country, is something that raises the hackles of people. But let me ask you this. I mean, you yourself have become a sort of master of the protests, if that can be described in polite terms. I mean, is that because you believe that over the years or over the decades, the mood of the times in this country has been politically dark and is getting darker?
Yes, I have always stated it that every president in Nigeria is worse than the last one. When Buhari left, everybody said this is going to be the worst. And after Buhari left, people were calling for the return of the Buhari regime. So that shows to you that
to be fair, I haven't heard a lot of people calling for the return of the
I heard a lot of
regime.
people who said, well,
I mean, in preference to the Tinubu regime.
I've heard people say, give us Buhari fuel price, give us Buhari's Naira.
Yes, I suppose in that sense, because the prices were lower. Yeah.
The same people also went and gave Buhari a rousing barrier. So it doesn't look like they hate him. I was probably the only person who said, this guy don't deserve the kind of monumental, acclaim and cheerleading that followed his barrier. But that's a conversation for another day, because it's no longer here. But the truth is that the country is getting darker. The electoral process has become very Byzantine. Nobody believed that elections can deliver votes that bring about credibility, that they can be free and fair, and that it is the people you vote for that will get declared as winners of election. Of course, you've seen poverty. Yesterday, they said, this is from the Nigerian government, that from 81 million people who are in abject poverty, we have now moved to 139 million, and we have 200 million people. So we're not making progress. That's the truth, either politically, economically, culturally, and socially. I don't see.
Well, the government is disputing those sort of World Bank figures, and they would say to you, I'm sure you've heard them say it many times, that your view of this country is particularly melancholy and despairing.
Well, they've always said that, and I've never been wrong. They have been the ones who's been wrong. My position on politics, economy, in the way the justice system works has been, right. I remember in 2019 when I was arrested in the charge for treason, I made it clear. I said, nope, this is going nowhere. And that's what happened. One day they came and withdrew their charges. So when I said to you that elections are not free, fair, or credible, or that they are allocating votes, I'm not lying. When you look at it, you find out I'm right. So
I expect a lot of Nigerians would agree with your assessment.
And on the issue of Nnamdi Kanu that we're talking about today, I've always stated that this trial was not going anywhere, and it hasn't gone anywhere. And that's why we're asking them to stop wasting resources, time, energy, and emotions on this, because the DSS spent millions of naira to come and carry out this charade in court. They have to lock up every street just to come and seek an adjournment.
And would you say that that dark theme that you talk about, that kind of overshadows this country, has resonance for many Nigerians? I mean, you do have a huge following, but do they see this country as darkly as you do, and that sense that everything is about to explode?
They see it even more than I do. That's why they are living. That's why most Nigerians, whenever they have the slightest opportunity to leave Nigeria, you don't leave a place that is that's going to explode. I mean, that's making progress. You stay and wait for it to see the progress happen. If this place was promised land, people will be coming in. But because it is not, people are leaving, you know. The only people that are left in Nigeria are people who are stuck in Nigeria. Now, probably people who are dinosaurs who can't go anywhere because they can't sense danger.
But you're not stuck in Nigeria, are you?
I'm likely stuck. This is my passport since January. But even if my passport was not seized, I'll be here. You know, that's a decision I took a long time ago. Even though I have a right to move freely around the world, that I'm done with being, you know, having a career in being, you know, an exile or, you know, being in another person's country. Yeah, because why did we go there in the first place? We travel 12,000 miles just to go and drink drinkable water in America, enjoy electricity, drive on good roads, get good jobs, send our children to school. That's why we all leave this place. If we have that over here, nobody would be a second-class citizen in the UK or anywhere in Europe. Those are the basic reasons why we leave this place. We go and seek hospitals that work. We go and drive on roads that don't kill people. We don't want to live in darkness. We don't want our neighbors to cut our necks off because of insecurity. We don't want our police to jail us when we haven't committed any offense. That's the reason we leave. These are the basic reasons why Nigerians are living in droves. If those conditions are in place, people who have left will return by tomorrow. Some of them will return without taking a single bag of clothing to come back. But Nigeria has denied them that opportunity, and it is because of that darkness that is hovering over Nigeria almost perpetually, day and night, that people are living. That is their own way of expressing that things are not good here anymore.
Continuing our discussion, in this second part, Omoyele Sowore expressed surprise at the significant public support for Kanu's release, citing an Instagram post where 92% of 17,000 people backed the protest call. He also noted the Nigerian government's pushback, suggesting they didn't anticipate such a favorable and swift response.
As
Sowore
well,
was
in
particularly
order to
critical
convince the
on
powers
political
that
and
be
traditional
of
leaders
Mr.
in the
Kanu's
Southeast,
sincerity.
including governors like
think
John
he made
Soludo and
an
Alex
open
Oti,
declaration in
for their
court
apparent lack
where he
of
said,
personal
"Give me 5
involvement
minutes
and commitment to
if I'm
Kanu's
released, I'm
release,
gonna end the violence
often giving nominal
in the
responses
Southeast." He made the
or claiming
declaration in
quiet
court last
diplomacy.
year. What else
He
you
argues
want
that
from him?
this quiet
And
diplomacy has
you
been ineffective
are the
and
government
merely
at
serves
any
to
rate.
make the public lethargic
You
about the
have
issue.
a duty
Sowore firmly
to protect
believes that public
the
loud
public.
disapproval
It's
of
not
Kanu's
his job
detention through
to protect
protest
the
is what
Southeast
is
or the
truly needed to
Southwest.
push the issue
But the
forward.
truth is
He
that
pointed
I
out
have
that
said
politicians
this, and I'll
often
repeat
resort to
again.
protest when their
If
own private interests
you
are
are
at
a
stake,
Nigerian, you
implying
can
a
get away with a lot
hypocrisy
of things.
in their current
But if you are
inaction
Igbo,
against Kanu.
Nigerian,
Gistars,
you can't get
what
a lot of
passionate
get away
and
with a lot
revealing
of things.
conversation.
Yes.
But you're
to
not
resolution
getting
away-
of
you're
the
not
getting
Nigerian
away with
government's
much
handling of
now.
Yes,
Nnamdi Kanu's
but
case
the odds are
is
stacked
palpable.
against
And
you.
his personal experience with
because,
state
you're
detention
coming
certainly
with
lent
zero.
an
And-
undeniable layer
and they'll
of
do it to you.
authenticity
it was
to
in
his
this country
empathy.
that there's a Yoruba
However, as we
nation
consider
movement.
Sowore's stance, it
They
is
even
crucial
went
to delve deeper
and
into
hijacked
the
the radio
layers
station
of his advocacy.
last year.
Sowore is not just a
Did you hear of
human
any
rights
trial? Did you
activist.
hear of any
He is
arrest?
a prominent
I'm
political
not
figure
using
with
that. I'm
presidential
not saying
ambition
that
for 2027.
that should not be the case.
His
But we must
intensified
tell
and
ourselves
very
the truth.
public campaign for
That
Kanu's
it's-
release,
it just
particularly
doesn't
targeting
look
the
good that,
politically significant
Igbos are
Southeast,
marginalized
inevitably
in every
sparked questions
sector,
about his
including in the
motives.
justice sector.
Is this purely a
to
principled
get a
pursuit of
trial
justice, or
wrapped
is it
up
also
in
a
10
strategic
years?
move
That's
to
so
gain
difficult
political
to do,
relevance
especially
and consolidate
when you
the
claim that you have
substantial Igbo
evidence that this
vote
person has
that he
committed
perceives
this
as
previous
marginalized and seeking strong
Nothing
leadership?
has
His
been
recent
done.
press
No,
briefings
there's nobody
and
who's been
call for
presented
mass
as a
action,
witness.
while a
The only witness that was
democratic
presented in
principle
his
can
case
also
did not
be
accuse him
viewed
of any
as a
crime.
calculated effort to build
He didn't say he
political
found a
base
gun
for
on him
future
or he was
electoral
importing
contests. Furthermore, we
ammunition
cannot
or
simply
weapons or had a
gloss
grenade.
over the complex and
People said,
devastating
well,
legacy of Nnamdi Kanu's past
making
action,
declarations
as
that,
highlighted.
he wants
Kanu, through
Biafra.
platforms like
And
Radio
I've checked the
Biafra,
Nigerian
issued
Constitution,
directives
1999
that were
Constitution.
widely
There's nowhere
interpreted
it
as
stated
call
that
to
it's a crime to
violence.
say that you
His
want
armed
Biafra.
Yeah,
wing,
well, I mean,
Eastern
you do
Security
have to,
Network,
and not
ESN,
to sort
is
of
alleged to
qualify
have
what
carried
you're
out
saying,
attacks
but I
on
mean,
Nigerian
the
military
person
and
asking
police,
for a Yoruba
leading to
nation is
significant
quite
loss of
different
life
from the
and
Biafra
widespread
issue.
unrest.
Biafra,
Civilians too
actually,
have
there was
suffered
a war
immensely
in this
from the
That's exactly
insecurity
why
and
I'm
the
telling you that
war that
the wars that
lasted-
start against you.
that lasted quite some time.
Absolutely.
Can end the
So in
violence
that
5 minutes
context
upon
and in
release,
that
while
very
compelling
narrow
bypasses
context,
the immense pain and
anything that
division
appears to
already caused
inflame
for
that
victims and their families.
concept
The question
of,
remains, why is
bringing
Sowore
back the
advocating for
memories of the
someone whose
war
past
and all
actions
the things that
arguably
happened
instigated
and
this
in a sense
violence
threatening
without
this
a clear
country is
unconditional
something that
renunciation of violent
raises the
tactics from
hackles of people.
Kanu
But let me
himself?
ask you this. I mean,
This makes
you
Sowore's position
yourself
difficult for many to
have become a
reconcile,
sort
as
of
it appears to
master of
prioritize the right of an
protests,
alleged
if
instigator
that
of violence
can be
over the
described
justice
in
and peace
in
for
polite
those who suffer.
terms. I mean,
Sowore
is that
rightly
because
described
you
Nigeria's
believe
political
that
landscape as dark
over the
and
years,
sparing,
over the
plagued by
decades,
poverty,
the
electoral
mood
fraud, and
of
insecurity?
the times in
In
this
such
country
an
has been
environment, the populace is indeed
politically
desperate for
dark
change,
and is getting
yet
darker?
a strong critic
Yes,
of other
I've always
Southeast leaders
stated
for their
that,
lack of personal involvement or
every
quiet diplomacy could
president
also
in
be seen as a
Nigeria
tactical move.
is worse than
If
the
quiet
last one.
diplomacy is ineffective, is Sowore's
When
loud
Buhari
approach
left,
purely
everybody
altruistic,
said
or
this is gonna be
is
the
he also
worst.
capitalizing on the perceived
after Buhari
vacuum
left,
to position himself as the unequivocal
were
champion?
calling for the
The
return
very
of
lack
the
of
Buhari
unity,
regime.
of purpose
So,
he
that
bemoans
shows to
among
you that
political
To be
Well,
fair, I
actors in
haven't heard a
Southeast
lot
is
of
a
people
complex
calling
issue,
for the return.
potentially rooted
I
in
heard
his
a lot of
personal
people who
ambitions,
said,
legitimate
in
security
preference to the
concerns,
they'll say,
and the
I've
difficult
heard people
moral
say, give us
dilemma
Buhari
of
fuel
engaging with
price,
figures like
give us
Nnamdi
Buhari's
Kanu.
naira.
The call for justice
Yes, I
must
suppose in
extend
that
to all,
sense, because
not
the prices
you know,
were
as-
low.
and the
yeah.
any
The
path
same
forward
people also
requires
went
a
and
unified
gave,
commitment
Buhari
to
a
peace
rousing,
and rule of law from all sides.
burial.
Don't forget
So
to
it doesn't
like,
look
share,
like,
and subscribe to Oba's
hate.
Trending Gist for more
I was
in-depth
probably
analysis.
the only person who
Thanks,
said,
and have a wonderful day.
this